Let's cut through the noise. Forget the headlines, forget the promises you've heard. We're here for one thing, the evidence. And today, we're putting the global fight against diabetes on the stand. So back in 2021, the World Health Organization drew a line in the sand. They set out a clear strategy, a global plan to fight one of the biggest health challenges of our time. But the question is any of it actually working? Well, a massive new study just dropped the numbers on our desk. So let's open the file and see if they add up.
All right, before we dive into the data, let's get one thing straight. We need to understand the stakes here. This isn't some minor health concern we're talking about. This is a full-blown global crisis.
And look, the numbers, they really speak for themselves. We're talking about more than 800 million adults living with this condition and 1.7 million deaths every single year directly because of it. That's not just a number on a chart. It's a catastrophe that's hitting families, communities, and entire economies. The stakes could not be higher.
Okay, so facing that reality, the WHO set up what I'm calling the 2030 exam. 4 key questions, 4 non-negotiable targets the world has to hit by 2030. Let's go over the test.
The questions are pretty simple. Number 1, are 80% of people with diabetes actually diagnosed? Number 2, of those people, are 80% getting their blood sugar under control? 3, are 80% also managing their blood pressure? And finally, number 4, are 60% of adults over 40 using statins to cut down their risk? Clear, measurable, ambitious. Now let's see the grades.
So, how do we get the answers to these questions? Well, researchers did the work. They pulled together individual health data from 100 different countries. We're talking about data covering over 75% of the entire global population. This is, without a doubt, the most detailed picture we have ever had. There's nowhere to hide.
All right, the evidence is in. The numbers have been run. It is time for the report card. Let's see how the world did.
And here it is. This chart tells the whole story. The solid bars, that's our current reality. Those dotted lines, that's the goal. And you don't need to be a statistician to see the problem. In every single category, we are falling short. This isn't just a small gap, people. It's a massive failure to deliver.
Let's break it down, item by item. First up, diagnosis. The grade? 63.2%. The target was 80. You know what that means? Over a third of the people with diabetes don't even know they have it. That's not just missing the mark, that's a complete breakdown right at the starting line.
Okay, so what about the people who do get diagnosed? You'd hope it gets better, right? Wrong. Blood sugar control, 63.2%. The exact same score. We are nowhere close to that 80% target. The follow-through is just as broken as the first step.
All right, what about blood pressure? 70.8%. Now, you might think, hey, that's getting closer to 80%, but listen, close doesn't count when millions of lives are at stake. It is still a fail.
And then we get to statins. We're talking about a simple, cheap, effective pill that prevents heart attacks and strokes. The target was 60%. The reality? A pathetic 31.8%. That is not just a failure. Frankly, it's a dereliction of duty on a global scale.
But here's the thing. Those global numbers, as bad as they are, they actually hide the real story. Because when you dig a little deeper, you find that this isn't just about failure. It's about a staggering level of inequality.
Just look at this map of diagnosis rates. The darker the color, the worse the performance. The pattern is crystal clear. Your odds of even finding out you have a life-threatening condition come down to your zip code. That's not a healthcare system. That's a lottery.
And if you thought that was bad, look at this next map. This is for statin use. The gap here is even more obvious. Huge parts of the world are basically black holes for this kind of care. It proves that access to basic life-saving medicine is still a privilege, not a right. And that is simply unacceptable. Let's just put the hard numbers on the screen so there's no confusion. In low-income countries, only about 35% of people with diabetes get diagnosed. In high-income countries, it's double that, almost 70%. The conclusion is unavoidable. Your bank account determines your health. Period. And for statins, the gap becomes an abyss. Less than 10% of people who need them in low-income countries get them. Compare that to almost 60% in high-income nations. That is a 6-fold difference. It's not a gap in care, it's a chasm.
So, after all that, what is the final verdict? Well, before I give it to you, we have to be honest about what this study can and can't say. Every investigation has its limits, and it's crucial we acknowledge them.
For one, the study lumps type 1 and type 2 diabetes together. For another, the data was all modeled for the year 2021, so it's a snapshot, not a live movie. And finally, the diagnosis was based on a single biomarker test, which isn't how it's done in a doctor's office. Now, these are important details for researchers, but let's be clear, they do not change the fundamental conclusion.
Because even when you account for all that, the verdict is absolutely clear. And you know what? I don't even have to say it. The study's own authors put it perfectly, right there in the paper. Rate of attainment of diabetes targets is low, with marked inequities at multiple levels. The evidence speaks for itself.
So, the world has a plan, and this evidence proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the plan is failing, miserably. The facts are on the table. The massive gaps are exposed for everyone to see. There are no more excuses. The time for talking is over. The real work starts now, and you can be sure we'll be watching.